let's get started. So the first step is going to remove the wheel completely off. This isn't 100% necessary, but it's much better for you to have access to the bolts that are holding the suspension together. So first we're going to remove the brake caliper. Using a 5mm Allen key, we totally unscrew those two screws here. We remove the caliper so that way when we're taking the wheel off and putting it back on, we know that we're not going to be damaging the disc. Let's slide it off, and once it's off we can remove the wheel. We'll do that using our 18mm wrench to undo those two bolts that are holding the wheel together. And it should slide right off. If not, that locking washer can be removed and that way it can slide off. Now that the wheel is out, let's just put it on our deck or somewhere safe. Make sure that it's not going to fall. Next, we're going to remove this bolt here that's holding the suspension to the suspension arm. We're going to do that using our 5mm Allen key. Now you may need two of those. So one that's holding at the back here, that same bolt, and one at the front. And you can undo it anti-clockwise and remove it, but do not remove it completely just yet, because we want to get that out. So a neat trick is to kind of keep it in just a bit, and you can use a hammer to just gently tap it to make it go out a bit. Now be careful, don't hit too hard, and you can keep unscrewing. Same way here, just a little bit more, and we'll unscrew the final part of the screw, and just maybe use something in between here to get it off, and there we go. Next we're going to remove this bolt here, and then using a 17mm wrench we're going to undo it on this side here. Make sure that you're holding tight on both sides. You should be able to remove that bolt here. There we go. Once it's off, this should be free and you should be able to remove your suspension. Next, let's put on the new suspension. Now this is the same for all of the suspension on the scooter. The only thing though is that it's essential, if you're changing more than just one of them, is that you do them one by one. Otherwise it's going to be way too hard to place them. So that's why even now if I'm changing a second one afterwards, I'm changing one by one and then going to the next one instead of trying to do all of them together. So let's put it back here. The side of the threads, where the threads are, is the side that's on top here, and the bottom should be down there. Now let's put on the bolts that are holding at the bottom here. We'll put the long side through from the inside here. Make sure the holes are aligned. And if it doesn't go in by hand, you can use like a small hammer or something to just kind of hit it through. And there we go. It's all through. And we'll put the new thread back on. Very important here that you put in some Loctite in there before tightening it. And just do it kind of by hand, and then use your second 5mm Allen key here to just hold it on the other side. Do not tighten it fully just yet, just with slight pressure before we put on the bolt that's up here. Same thing, let's put it back on. You should see on the bolt a blue side, like a blue rubber, and that goes towards the outside of the scooter. And this is the way you put it in. And once you've tightened by hand, you can take your 17mm key . Once it's tight, we'll do the same thing at the bottom here. Hold both sides and tighten. There we go. We've changed our suspension. Now we can start putting the wheel back on. Make sure that you're going in the correct side The cable of the motor is on the left side of the scooter. And here, make sure that all the washers are in the inside and the locking washer is on the outside together with the bolt. Once it goes in, that all the washers are in place, you can tighten it by hand on each side, making sure the wheel is on, and getting your 18mm key and tightening the bolts on each side. And finally, we've got our brake caliper to put back on. Make sure the disc is going through the brake pads. We'll use our 5mm Allen key here to get the bolts back on. Tighten both sides loosely first and then completely nice and strong. And there we go, guys. We've changed our suspension.